What's up, everybody? My name is Juwan Rohan, and this is the Misguided Podcast, where we intend to guide you to a better future. I'm sitting here with Jennifer Sahady, a money educator. How you doing today?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I am doing well. A little tired though, but I went to sleep pretty late last night. Got a new studio set up. I wish I could show you guys, but I was up all night trying to fix it, get it ready for the podcast in the morning and stuff like that. So, and I still wasn't able to finish. Cool. Let's go ahead and get into your story. You're a money educator. You've done a few TED Talks. I want to start from the beginning, so we can go ahead and start from where are you from?
Sure. I'm from originally Westport, Massachusetts. It's a cute little beach town about an hour south of Boston.
Okay, cool. So you're originally from there and you still live there?
Nope, I live a little bit north of there now. There's not much business in sleepy little beach towns.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Boston, nice. But I went to Boston a couple of times, and like the thing is that I remember most is obviously the strong accents, but a lot of people use like I think it's like the word asshole out there a lot.
Yeah, it's not uncommon. We're very aggressive drivers.
Yeah.
If anyone on your podcast is thinking about visiting Boston, I highly recommend it. Boston is beautiful, but don't drive. They're not going to be nice to you. They're not going to be understanding that you don't know the roads. You will not like Boston as much if you're driving there.
Yeah, it is. And you're always caffeinated because there's a Dunkin' Donuts on literally every corner. So that's also another thing I remember.
It's true. We're the Dunkin' capital.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's funny that you mentioned the accent because I would tell people I was from Boston because who knows many other cities outside of Boston in Massachusetts. And people would always kind of like narrow their eyes and be like, you don't sound like you're from Boston. I'm like, you got me. I grew up in a suburb. We don't speak like that in the whole state. That is really just a very small part of Boston.
Yeah. That's good to know. Yeah. You don't have a Boston accent at all.
Like Mark Wahlberg, pack the car.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
I can do it. I've heard
it. Cool. Well, let's go ahead and I want to know how did you first learn about money? And go into that story about kind of how you started changing your view on money.
Absolutely. So I went to business school and then I started working for some financial giants. And it was actually not in business school, but in working for the financial giants, living in the field, that I actually first learned about it. And I always found that really surprising because by then I already had a credit card, I already had a car, I had already made some important decisions. And I thought, had I known this sooner, I might have made different choices.
Yeah.
So as soon as I could, I switched from working in finance to educating within finance, educating people on retirement plans, on investing and things like that. And then I started my own consultancy because I found when people need help with money, they go straight to a financial advisor. And that's like not driving and then just buying a car. Like you want to learn about it first. There's this gap. Even last weekend, I had someone mention to me, like, I have a financial advisor. I think he's a good guy. I don't really know. Everything he says is over my head. I don't really know what he's doing. I hope it's the right things. And like that should tell you something because money is so essential to everyone's lives and stability and to build the foundation for whatever it is you want to accomplish. It should be something you invest your time and money in to educate yourself and get smarter. And I guess most of you agree with me because you listen to this podcast.
Yeah, most definitely. And it takes time, right? It doesn't just happen. You can't just like learn about money all in one day. But it takes time to truly understand it. And kind of process
some trial and error. You have to get your feet wet.
Yeah, implementing it in your life too is like super, it's a progression, right? And that's why I'm trying to like coin this term, but I call myself a progressive entrepreneur, right? Because I'm always gradually learning in stages, right? And I'm always continuing to add businesses to my portfolio or just like grow my businesses, right? So I always say progressive entrepreneur instead of serial entrepreneur, right?
I
So
like that. Yeah, it's like lifelong learner with
yeah,
serial entrepreneur. It's a progressive entrepreneur.
yeah, exactly.
I like it.
I'm trying to grow in abundance, I'm trying to the misguided podcast, we are like a community, so we have to grow together. But
I love that.
yeah, thank you, thank you. So I get that. Like, I want to talk about like your business school, right? You say you went to college for business school. What the hell did you learn in business school? Because like, like if you're not learning about how to run a business or structure your money, that's kind of concerning to the educational system.
Right. So I did absolutely learn how to run a business. I learned
Okay.
financial accounting. I learned micro and macroeconomics.
Yep.
I learned about human resource management. I learned about PF Skinner, right? And like all of that stuff when it comes to organizational behavior. But they didn't teach practical life skills, right? They didn't say, this is what a IRA is. This is the difference between a 401k and an IRA and a brokerage account, right? This is what a mutual fund is and an index fund is, right? When you go to business school, they have you focused on being a corporate employee and supporting those businesses. It's not necessarily entrepreneurial or even personal finance. And now I actually coach not just individuals, but businesses to say, if you're running a business or if you want to run a business, you need to organize your finances first.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a step that people often miss, is taking care of their own books, their own systems for cash flow management, their own thoughts on how do I want to spend my money and my time. And then they jump right into trying to do that for their business as well. And it's a lot at once.
Yeah, it is. It is. Trying to run a business alone is a lot at once. So,
It's a
uh,
fun challenge.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Cool. Are there any like books and podcasts that you like were listening to throughout your journey to kind of motivate you or put you in a, zone to change your life?
Yeah, so I read all the classic books, right? Like How to Win Friends and Influence People and Rich Dad Poor Dad and all of those, like the classic quintessential
Mm-hmm.
books. It's been a while since I've read a book because I think once you have the fundamentals, the principles, it's really living
Mm-hmm.
and learning from others, like on joining this podcast that really makes a difference. So to me, my best education came from the fact that I talk about money and I ask other people, what are you doing? What are the things that you think are doing well? What are things that you wish you hadn't done?
Yeah.
So in my job in the past, I was a retirement education consultant, right? Which pretty much meant I would go to every company and talk to every employee there. So I would talk to people who work the lines. I would talk to middle management. I would talk to upper management. I would talk to the C-suite. And when I talked to each person, it was one-on-one. And I could see their face and simultaneously a screen that had their investments, their age, their income, their retirement savings, which is incredible, right? Oftentimes, if you're looking on Instagram, if you're reading a book, it's very easy to portray a certain lifestyle, right? But when you're looking at the numbers, it's a
Mm-hmm.
very different story. So someone might drive a Lexus and have nothing saved for their future, like nothing.
Mm-hmm.
They might be living paycheck to paycheck, earning 300,000. I have seen that multiple times. And that to me is stuff you don't get in any book. It's something you learn from actually seeing. Like, this is what we say we should do. And then in practice, as humans, this is what we really do. And these are the struggles we have and the problems we have. And it was amazing to see people earning $300,000 with the same problems as people earning $30,000.
Yeah.
That's something I
Because
don't know if it happens in other countries, but it astonishes me about our country.
the problem isn't necessarily income, right? It's how do I say this without getting in trouble? It's people, right?
We
It's
are our own biggest
behavior. Yeah,
problem.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's a culture, right? In capitalism, we have this culture and this idea that more is better. And the
mhm,
problem with that is that more has no end,
yeah,
right? If you want to buy things, there are no limits to what
mhm,
you can buy. There was a
yeah,
trend of the super rich to buy submarines a few years back, and now they're all going to space. Right? Like there's never enough. Like there's always more you can get. So if you're seeking more, you'll find it, but you'll never be satiated. And that to me is such a valuable lesson. And it's something they couldn't teach you in school, right? Because that's a principle and a life lesson. It's not really a textbook example.
Yeah. Wow. No, that's very true. So when you're sitting down looking at these numbers in front of these people, like, are you trying to keep a straight face, telling them like, "Wow, you're really messing up," or is it hard?
So it's hard if you have a heart, right? Like if I was a normal like financial consultant and I just looked at numbers and was like, okay, well, 2 + 2 still is 4. Here's what you need to do. But I
Yeah.
did genuinely feel bad for people. But to me, it wasn't you messed up. It was up until this point, you didn't know this. And now you have a choice. You can continue on the same path that you've always been on, or you can start choosing something else. And I think that's an amazing opportunity we all have. Right? Anytime we learn new information, whether through a podcast or a book or a deep conversation with someone who's willing to be honest with you, at that point, you'll always have a choice. Do I
Yeah.
keep doing what I'm doing and getting what I'm getting? Or do I want something else?
Makes sense. All right, let's play a game. I want to role play, okay?
Sure.
I want to be the $300,000 guy that is living paycheck to paycheck. I want you to envision you're looking at the screen and you're seeing the budget and where the money's going and why I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I want you kind of to break down a very simple summary of how the conversation would go, and I'll feed off of you too.
Sure. So, one of the things I always start with is a very open, like, what can I do for you? Like,
Yeah.
how can I help you? You've come to me. What would you like to get out of this conversation? So, how can I help you?
I'd like to, I see I make a lot of money and my money just keeps disappearing. And I'd like to really invest somewhere and put my money somewhere.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. What inspired that desire to do something different?
Uh, my friends in my circle that I'm around, they all seem to have investments and, are getting into real estate or stocks. And I look good, right? On paper, I look good when when I'm driving. But when you really dig into like my stress and anxiety, knowing that I have to like live paycheck to paycheck, and they're probably not.
That's a lot of pressure. Oh, I
Yeah.
apologize that you feel that way, but I'm excited to help you work on it. So, have you taken a step back and looked at where your money is currently going?
Yeah, I think it's going to like cars, just trying to keep up with the fancy life of my income. So, I make a lot, but I'm also spending a lot, and I don't think anything's being saved.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, money is for spending, but you probably do want to save some too, unless working forever has been your lifelong dream.
Yeah, I
So,
just
let's
can't
think
find
about some
the
of your.
balance.
Yeah, so one of the things I like to do, and you can let me know if this works for you, but we can reflect on what are some recent purchases you made. And if today you had that choice again, would you make that choice again, or would you rather have saved the money or invested the money? Right.
Yeah,
So, what was your last major purchase?
I bought a boat.
A boat.
A
Did you
boat.
already have a boat? Was this your first boat?
Yeah, it was my first boat, and I bought a boat because obviously right now it's super hot, and I thought it would be a great idea to buy a boat and just go out in the summer.
And right now, if you had that money again, would you buy that boat again?
I mean, probably because I want to do it, and it makes me look good.
Have you looked at what the cost of the boat is as far as maintenance and upkeep and a place to keep it?
I have not.
So, one of the things that I like to think about when I make a decision is, do I need my own? Can I rent it? What's the cost of owning? So,
Mm,
for me, this is something I look at if you live in a city, owning a car and having to pay for parking versus taking an Uber or a Lyft or a taxi. Right. So one of the things I like to do anytime I go to purchase, when I say I want something, the first thing I recognize is it's okay to want things. That's normal.
yeah,
What's the best way to satiate this want? Right. And one of the things I've noticed is that boats are really, really expensive to upkeep. It's not just the initial cost, but there's often, like, if it's a sailboat, a mooring, or if you don't have room at your own house to keep that boat, you have to look at a place to store it. So you're paying rent, not just for yourself, but for your boat too.
Mm-hmm.
So when I look at decisions, one of the things I look at is what's the total cost of it and not just the upfront cost. And that's a metric I can work with you on. But it sounds like since you already have a boat, we should think about what's the best way to get the most out of this boat. So is this something that you feel you could make money off of as well? Is there a way you could rent it or, host parties and charge a cover charge once you've bought something? My thought is often, how do I get the most out of it? Or what's the best way to maintain it and get a good resale value on if I decide to sell it? So have you thought about some of those things?
Yeah, cut. I like that. I like that a lot. Did you ever study psychology or anything?
It was my minor, yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. I could tell. I studied psychology, and you're like really good at putting things into perspective for people. And kind of like, yeah, you're good. You're good at breaking stuff down. Good job. I like the last part.
Missing, right?
Yeah, no, it is.
It's not just the numbers, it's how you feel about it, because we're humans, right? And that's what I was saying before. There's the textbooks, and then there's like what actually happens in the real world.
Yeah, or just like understanding yourself, right? Like you said, you walk by stuff and like, damn, I want that. Like, oh, that's okay to want that, right? Like, that's normal. Like, it's okay. I'm being blasted by advertisements, like more than per day, right? So it's okay to want things, and that's super interesting the way you broke it down. But the way you kind of flipped it right at the end is like, how can I turn this debt into a moneymaker? It's that kind of reminded me of like Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? How do I turn this liability into an asset? I love it. Great job, Jennifer.
Thank you. And it goes two ways, right? So you tell people you might want a new framework when you make decisions in the future, but now that you've made this decision, right? Because like you were saying, there's this instant for the people who are trying to do the combination of psychology and finance into this behavioral finance field, which is fascinating. They often don't recognize once a choice has been made, you're already here.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not easy to suddenly course correct. Well, you shouldn't have bought that. That's not helpful. It's already been purchased.
True. A lot of people do that. Well, you shouldn't. That's true. Yeah. Okay, cool. I like it. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get into the Hella Misguided segment where I ask the same question to every person who comes up here, and that question is: if you were writing a letter to your 18-year-old self, what would you say in that letter?
So, a lot of things. The number one thing I would say is it's super smart to have a plan, but recognize no matter how smart you are and no matter how much research you put in, life sometimes has its own plans. So plan and dream, but recognize that you're not in control of everything and give yourself a little bit of slack.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Like it's almost like, I don't know, this happens in real estate a lot, but you can plan and plan, right? Of like how you want to purchase a house, right? How you want to flip it or anything. But no matter how much you plan, everything is not going to go to that plan. Like something's going to go wrong, right? And that's kind of like the same thing in life. Is just like, no matter how much you plan it out, right? There's always a different path. Like I think about like my life and kind of when I was 18, right? And I had I knew exactly what I was going to do, like break it down, like step by step, right? I'm a very step by step person, and I'm nowhere in those vicinities right now. like I'm not even in the same building of what I wrote down. Yeah. So it's just weird, right? To look back at like 18 and you're like, dang, I wish I knew this a long time ago, right? I always say to myself, like, if I knew what I knew now when I was 18, I'd be a billionaire right now.
Right.
Like, yeah, not a millionaire, a billionaire. But that's just because I believe knowledge is so important.
It is. And you likely still will become a billionaire. It's just not yet.
Nah, yeah. True. Hopefully. Cool. Well, thank you for that answer. I want to know, what do the people need to know about money at a young age? Let's say 16 years old. To you, what's important for them to start their journey into learning about money?
Absolutely. So number one is talk about money.
Mm,
That is a rule we just need to enforce. For the longest time, it was don't talk about money, politics, or religion. And I reflect on where our country is, and I think this is where not talking about it has gotten us.
hmm
And
hmm
I would like something different. So I believe we should break that stigma of it's rude to talk about money. Obviously, I'm not telling people like go up to everyone and ask how much do you make and what are your money mistakes and how much do you have invested. Like, don't be uncouth about it, but start asking questions like, what's your favorite way to save money? How do you approach investing? What does investing mean to you?
I
Having conversations like that are so important, and the sooner the better.
yeah, money is such a taboo topic, and like I think that is exactly why we're in trouble today, is because it's not talked about enough, especially the younger people, right? Which is why I wrote my book, Money Talks: The Beginner's Guide to Investing for Kids, available on Amazon. Make sure you guys go pick that up if you haven't already. But no, like the reason I wrote the book was, and it's in conversational form. Okay, so it's two kids talking to each other just about money, right? Which is super easy to understand if you're reading as a kid, right? Because when an adult tries to teach a kid, the kid in the back of the mind is always like, I don't want to hear it. Like, whatever, I'm a kid, like, but if another kid is teaching another kid, that is super important and easy for another kid to understand, which is why I wrote the book in kind of like a conversation dialogue, right? Um, and literally on in the beginning, before like my note to the parents in the book literally says like, the goal of this book is to get your kids at least talking about money. They don't need to learn and understand everything, but I think it's important to have conversations with your kid about money. What is investing? What is budgeting? What is 401k? What just, and so I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you brought that
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm working on a book with one of my friends about how parents can help their kids learn. So I think
up.
like between your book for the kids directly and the book I'm working on to help the parents feel more comfortable about these conversations with their kids and know what the limits are. Right? I think there's this analogy that a lot of parents know, and it's the idea of what do you give your kid when they lose a tooth for the tooth fairy? And you have
Ooh.
to be really careful, right? Because the tooth fairy is for everyone, but it's an individual household decision, right? So, what if one parent gives their kid $20 from the tooth fairy when everyone else is giving their kid $1, right? Like, you have to be careful about the ripple effect because kids do listen. They are sponges. They are so much smarter than most adults realize. And a lot of people think, unlike you and I, a lot of people think like, oh, let kids be kids. They don't need to know about this stuff. I don't want to burden them, but they're eager and they want to know and they will soak this stuff up whether you're teaching them or not.
Yeah, it's
Right? They're
always good
going to learn
to have it be taught by you, right? Rather than society. So like when you
and
kind of,
intentionally.
yeah, when you try and like when you try and hide your kid from those conversations, right? Sex, money, religion, um, they're gonna go find it out no matter what. Especially today with the internet, you can just simply type it in, right? So it's better to let them learn from you, in that aspect. But yeah, I love it. I love it. What does financial freedom mean to you?
Opportunity and options.
Break that down. What do you mean?
So when someone says, what is financial freedom? To me, it's the opportunity to do what I truly want to do and the options to choose. So, like I said, I met a lot of people who are living paycheck to paycheck. And in that situation, you can't choose to leave your job or to do something else easily because you're kind of stuck in that situation to keep up with your current bills and responsibilities. So to me, true financial freedom is the ability to choose. Do I want to stay in this job? Do I want to start my own company? Do I want to move? having those options come from having a deep set of financial freedom.
Love it. I always break it down to time, right? Having the time
Time
to do.
affluence.
So, but I like the word opportunity, and I like the word choose, because you make choices in life, right? So, dang, I like that.
To me, financial success has never been like, I'm going to be the kid who dies with the most stuff. Like that's a weird goal to have in life. And yet it seems to be what many people do. And I'm like, I just want to choose, right? If I'm like, wow, I really love the beach. I wish I could live by the beach. I never want to tell like the beautiful dreamer inside me, like, no, right? Like you've got the accountant and the financial manager up top. And then you've got this like kid who has dreams. And you're like, I want to live by the beach. And you're like, all right, we'll make that happen. I got a plan for us. Right? Like, let's make that happen.
Yeah, no, cool. What, okay, so when you say living paycheck to paycheck, what exactly does that mean for the audience? Does it mean that like, if you wanted to leave your job today, you can still pay your bills?
No, that's exactly what living paycheck to paycheck isn't, right? So living paycheck to paycheck means generally most people will get a paycheck every 2 weeks. Some people are paid weekly. And before that money is actually in your hands, it's already been spoken for. That's what it means to live paycheck to paycheck. So when you're getting that money, it's already not yours. And that to me is terrifying, right? Like when we were doing our role playing with the guy who was making 300,000, I don't care how much you're making, there's an anxiety, no matter what your income level is. If you're like, I need that check because it's already gone, right? Because if you take a step back from that and you really unpack it, what you realize is that money isn't yours. It was never yours. So you're working, that work is yours. That time was yours, but the money was never yours. You gave it away.
Yeah. So
how, and like that to me is like real.
Yeah. But okay, so you have this money, but doesn't everyone have bills to pay? So like no matter what, or like, like, okay, let's think of your necessity, right? Your rent or your mortgage. Like that money you already know is gone when your paycheck comes. So like how do you get past that?
So it's knowing that not all of it is gone. You're right. Some of it will always be. You have utilities. Yeah. Mm-hmm. At some point, you'll hopefully have a mortgage paid off, and then it will just be real estate taxes and insurance and utilities and food, right? There are things you cannot live without. But some of that money should be yours. Some of that money you should have a choice on. And that comes back to having like a really solid spending plan, right? Like, how do I want to use my money? And this was something I learned through many examples, through people I knew. I remember, like in your example, someone telling me, you go on a vacation every year. How do you afford that? I've been to over 30 countries. Like, I love travel. Yeah. I still have a very well-funded 401k. I max out my IRA every year. I have brokerage accounts. I have emergency savings, and I have some cash, like just ready to go. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have all of those things.
It's budgeting.
My friend asked, like, how come I can't? And then we went to the supermarket together, and it was all these small decisions, right? He was like, oh, I want this cheese. And I was like, but that one's on sale. He was like, no, this is the brand I buy. And I was like, mm-hmm. Right? Like the little things, right? Yeah. To me, throughout the supermarket, they were spending $50 more than I would have for the same basic things, right? And I'm not saying I don't eat. I love food, right? But like we both get cheese, but I go for the sale cheese, right? Yeah. We both go for, cereal, but I buy it in bulk when it's on sale, right? And things like that. And those little decisions can make a huge difference. Food never goes bad in my house. I look through all the produce every day to make sure that I'm eating things before they go bad. Because to me, wasting food is just like setting dollar bills on fire, right? Yeah. Like a lot of times it's not buying a boat. It's not buying 2 cars instead of 1. It's a lot of little decisions too.
Yeah. No, yeah. I interviewed someone a while ago and they said better decisions, better performance. And that probably will always stick with me. But yeah, that is super true. Like those little decisions, you just tweak it just a little bit, could change your whole like mindset and your life. But
absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's what I was telling you before. Like I really protect myself from advertisements.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to give myself whatever I want. So I've carefully selected what it is that I do want.
Mm,
Right. So I always have anything I want. If I saw a vacation that I wanted to do, I would book it. I would, of course, research and, see if I could do it cheaper than the travel agents and all
yeah,
that as well. But I'm going to get the things I want. But I want to make sure that the things I buy are things I really want and not something that friends or society or marketers or sales people have nudged me into. Right.
absolutely.
Like I would always joke with people like, oh, I went into the mall and I needed a coat and I bought a bathing suit. I never knew I needed a bathing suit, but the second I saw it, I knew I needed this one. You're like,
Yeah,
that wasn't something you wanted. You didn't wake up that day and choose that. And that to me really bugs me, right? Like
yeah,
living a life where other people are choosing for me. That's not what I want. I want to be in control.
yeah. Yeah, and it's hard though because you're getting hit by stuff every day, right? Social media is really the culprit. Advertisements, TV, Netflix, and whatever, right? It's hard. It's hard to stay in that like bubble, for especially for a long time.
Yeah.
But it
So
takes
one of the things I can give
discipline.
you is I play a game, right? You said before, I love games. One of the games I play is when I see an advertisement, I try to call out what they're trying to sell me, right? So car advertisements are the best for this, right? Like there's like this Jeep, and you're like, do you go to the mountains or the beach today? I'm like, I can go to the mountains or the beach in my Hyundai. Like it's
Mm.
not like I'm driving up the mountain in my car. I park and then I hike up the mountain.
Yeah.
Like no one buys a Jeep and drives up mountains, but they're like, if you want to be adventurous, you need this. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
I'm already adventurous. Like, I don't need that. Or like makeup, right? They're like, you'll be beautiful. I'm like, I'm already beautiful. Like, I don't need to put junk on my face. I'm a
Yeah.
beautiful human being. Like, and giving yourself that confidence, right? I'm already adventurous. I already love my family, right? Like, insurance companies are the best. Like, what if your loved ones died? I'm like, no, we're not playing this game. I love my loved ones. I take care of them. I tell them I love them every day. I help them every chance I get.
Yeah.
I don't need a product to show my family I love them.
Yeah.
But like you
Well,
have to call it out. It is a psychology game.
you do
They're
have,
really good at it. They're
yeah.
really good. You have
Yeah.
to be equally good.
Yeah, advertise people. I have a couple friends who work in advertisement, and they're smart.
They're
uh,
so smart. And they
um,
get paid well because they're
yeah,
good at what they do and it makes money.
yeah, very true, very true. Cool, cool. Well, I want to start to wrap up. It's approaching 9:20. The way I like to end the episode is ask you a question with guided conclusions. Where we haven't talked about it before this episode, so it could be anything. All right, we could go deep. We could go scary if that's a thing, scary question, or we could go funny, right? But today's question is, since you are a money educator, I want you to pick, if you were to invest in only one, which one would it be? 401k or Roth IRA? And why? You have to break it down so that they understand. I know the answer, but you have to break it down.
That's a really tricky one because to me, just like everything I want in my life, that's an and. You have to invest in both. And here's why. The Roth IRA is currently capped at $6,000 a year for people under the age of 50. Saving $6,000 a year is not going to be enough to live in retirement comfortably, especially if you're like the normal person, you want to retire at 65 and you'll live till 85, or like my grandmother who will be 95 and is still going. Right?
Oh,
If you think about it, $6,000 a year for 40 years, even with amazing investment returns, it's not going to cover 30 years of no income. It's just not going to cut it. 401ks have a higher limit, right? You can save a lot more in 401ks. That's why I like to do both, because 401ks are only for when you're older, 55 plus. And for most people, we can just say 60 plus, because 55 requires a lot of complicated withdrawals and math, and most people are not going to want to do that. If you're 20 and you're really saving for that long-term future, but something happens in between, 401ks are not particularly flexible. You can take a loan, but you have to pay it back. You can take a withdrawal, but there'll be tax penalties. A Roth IRA will allow you to make withdrawals without penalties. And to me, that's why you need both, right? You cannot comfortably retire and live the full life of your dreams without a 401k. It's very, very tough to do. If you're really into real estate, if you're really into other investments, you might be able to pull it off. But the 401k is just like one of the easiest tax beneficial ways to do it.
Yeah.
But IRAs have more flexibility, particularly the Roth IRA. I love them. I think if you are 18 years old and you are earning money and you do not have a Roth IRA, talk to me. I will help you understand why that's so valuable. I was talking with some childhood friends, and we were like thick as thieves, like shoulder to shoulder, like whispering to each other. And of course, my friend's mom came over, childhood friend. She was like, "What is Jenny telling them now?" Like, oh, she was like, "What are you guys talking about?"
Yeah.
Like, Roth IRAs. Just like, "Oh, I want to learn about them too." And she pulled up a seat. Like, to me, it's the best kept secret of our generation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Can you break
But
down
it's not enough, right? Like, there's so much more.
Yeah, can you break down a little bit of the benefits of a Roth IRA for people?
Yeah, absolutely. So a Roth IRA, first of all, Roth generally just means after tax. It was the name of the senator who helped found it as a tax loophole back in the 80s. Fun fact.
Yeah, that is a fun
I'm
fact.
a true
I
nerd.
didn't know that, actually.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the trickiness of it, right? Because like when you hear Roth IRA, it doesn't mean anything to you, right? It's not like super cool tax advantaged investment account, right? That should be the name, because everyone would be like, I want the super cool tax advantaged investment account,
Yeah.
right? But instead, we all just go right into brokerage accounts because we don't know taxes, because we're not taught about these things, and we miss out on some incredible opportunities. So an IRA just stands for an individual retirement account. It's what you can do if you don't have a 401k, or if you have a 401k, but you have a certain income level. So everyone can save in a 401k regardless of their income. And many 401ks will have Roth or pre-tax. Some people, if you earn too much, you can't save directly into a Roth IRA. So there is some trickiness to Roth accounts because it is tax beneficial accounts. So you have to play by the IRS rules. But generally speaking, an IRA is a chance for you to invest and get tax benefits. The tax benefit of the Roth is that you don't pay any taxes on the growth, which is insane. Like there's this saying, there's nothing certain in life but death and taxes. And I just told you there's a way to dodge taxes. Like that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So in order to get that benefit, you have to follow the rules, which means you can't use the growth until retirement. It is an individual retirement account. You generally use that money after age 60. That's a long time away for people in their 20s and 30s, right? Like you and I were saying, like you make this plan and then nothing goes according to plan. So what if you change your mind and want to take some money out? Well, the cool thing about a Roth IRA is after the account's open for 5 years, any money you put in, you can take out at any time without penalty. The growth has to stay in. And that's actually a good thing because you still have some long-term savings and some investments for your future. But some of the money you put in, you can take out at any time. And like the math is crazy, right? Like let's say you're 18 years old. You put $1 into a Roth IRA. 5 years later, you put $5,000 in. Right now, maybe that $1 went up to $2, right? In those 5 years, right? But because the account itself was open for 5 years, the day after you put in that 5,000, you could take it out the very next day, right? If suddenly you're like, oh my God, that house I've been looking at finally came on the market. Why did I put my money into the IRA yesterday? You're like, oh, the account's been open for 5 years. The capital, the principal, the money I put in, you can take out at any time if the account has been open for 5 years.
Without any penalty?
Mm-hmm. Super cool, right?
Do you ever have to put it back?
No, it's your money. And that's only with an IRA. If it was a 401k, you'd have to take a loan and you would have to pay it back. But with an IRA, you can take it out at any time for any reason. It's your money. It's the most flexible account there is.
Wait, I know.
Why
am I just now learning about this? I think we're gonna have to talk. Okay, you might have to come up on the podcast and be my my money educator for some segments. But yeah, wow. Okay, I'm gonna look into my stuff now because there is a house on the market, or there is house. I'm looking at houses, and that's a great example. I've been thinking like, I've been hearing stories of people borrowing from the 401k. I never wanted to do that. But the Roth though, I like that. I like
A
that.
Roth IRA. Yeah. So here's the issue with a 401k loan. And this is something very few people know. How many jobs have you been through in your life so far? A lot, right?
Yeah.
Quite a few. The 401k loan is tied to that company that you're working for when you take that loan. Mm-hmm. What happens if you leave that company?
It stays, or there's options, which I'm actually going through right now. I don't know what's best for me.
Usually, some companies will let you keep paying, but most of them will say, you left the company, this arrangement is severed.
Yeah.
Due immediately. Right now, if it was a $5,000 loan because you needed some medical work, but if it was a $50,000 loan for a down payment on a home, are you going to be able to come up with $50,000 on a moment's notice, especially if you didn't choose to leave your company, right? Like it might be they choose to leave you.
Yeah.
And now you don't have an income, and you either have a huge loan due or that becomes cash you earned that year, which is going to trigger tax increases that you don't want to see, right? Like if you made $50,000 that year and you're at a $50,000 loan, it looks like you earned $100,000 that year. It's a higher tax bracket. Plus there are tax penalties if you're under the age of 59 and a half. It's ugly.
Yeah.
Right. So if you put a gun to my head, I still would struggle to take a loan from a 401k. And this is having seen this all of my life. Like I don't want to be caught in a position where suddenly I could be in a really bad place through no choice of my own. But that's why I love the Roth IRA.
Yeah.
It's just not much, $6,000 a year. Like when I saw, you probably saw the news recently that someone had billions of dollars in an IRA. And I was like, how is that legally possible? Because there are annual limits. Like you can't put that much in. And the truth is, it's a ridiculous example that should have never happened. And it's not even something any of us should talk about, except for regulators to try to fix little loopholes like that. But for the most part, you're not going to have $1 billion in there because you're putting in 6,000 at a time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That is
even if you get 100% return on your money.
Very
you save
true.
For 10 years, that's 60,000. You double it, it's 120. It's still not a ton of money.
Not enough. Yeah.
Not in the grand scheme of things. Like if someone writes you a check, that's a ton of money. But
cool.
Yeah. Well, sorry, I couldn't give you a one or the other. I couldn't choose. I want it all, and I want your guests to have it all too.
No, the correct answer is balance. Like you got to balance everything in life, right? You got to balance spending and earning and saving and investing, right? All those things. So
absolutely, and the short-term flexibility of a Roth IRA with the long-term growth of a 401k.
There you go. Like, don't just
there are different products because they do different things, and they're both good.
Yeah, exactly. It's like stocks versus real estate. So cool. Well, thank you so much, Jennifer. This was great, and I learned some stuff, and I hope the audience did as well. How can the audience reach you if they want to talk to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on my website. It's my name, jennifersahady.com. The last name is Sahady. You can find me on LinkedIn, and my email is also my name. I make it really easy to find me. So it's jennifer@jennifersahady.com. And generally, if you just want to learn, right, I'm the education that's missing. People spend a lot of money educating themselves in college, not learning any of the things they need to be financially successful. I help people look through their current money situations and find opportunities to improve. I don't do any money management. It's not like every year you have to give me a cut of your income. To me, I think that's something you can do, or you can pay a financial advisor. There's plenty of them if what you want is just investments. But if you want to truly learn, there's unfortunately very few people who will share this knowledge because they'd rather have you pay them for life.
Yeah, take my course. That's what it is. A lot of those going on right now, but cool. Yeah, I appreciate you, and thanks for reaching out, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you. You as well. Thank you for having me. This time flew by. It's so much fun talking to you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it did fly by. Cool. Well, you heard it here. This is the Misguided Podcast. We're into to guide you to a better future. My name is Juwan, and again, I'm sitting here with Jennifer Sahady. Make sure you go follow her. And if you like this episode, please like and share and subscribe to the podcast. Appreciate you guys. We'll talk soon.